Welcome back. We're still in 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. And tonight we're focusing on the role that the media plays in how we discuss the issue of gender-based violence in South Africa. Sisanda Ngwala from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology recently wrote a research paper on the role that news broadcasts play when it comes to reporting on matters that involves the legal process in particular and what plays out in the courts. She joins us now by Zoom to talk more about this. Sisanda, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Let's begin with what it was that moved you to explore this as a research topic.
Thank you very much, Thembekile. So the study is part of a broader PhD study that I'm doing, looking at news reports, language, particularly when it comes to crime and the justice system in the country. And I'm moved by this because for most South Africans, the media, particularly television and radio, are the main means through which they learn about what happens in court. And so how we describe the processes, how we explain what justice means is important in creating a public sense of whether our justice system is and isn't working. And this particular paper looks particularly just at the cases involving instances where children have been subjected to violence, either being murdered or raped, and how in 2019 those cases were reported on by the television news broadcasters in the country.
And one of your observations was that often in the reporting there's a tendency to become quite sensational, especially in television and broadcast media. Do you think that sensationalism is deliberate or comes, for example, from an issue that we know in the industry has been spoken about quite a lot, the juniorization of newsrooms?
I think it's a combination of issues, Thembekile. I think it is in the training that journalists receive, and from the onset, students are taught that if it leads, it bleeds. I think it is the juniorization of newsrooms, and I think there's also, on the part of journalists, an urgency to make these matters uppermost in people's minds. So the inclination may be, I want to show just how gratuitous the violence meted out on these particular victims has been, and so you delve into details that are quite gratuitous. So I think it's a combination of those factors without really thinking about the trauma that that may cause, and bearing in mind the levels of violence that South Africa has, that if you are going to be describing how a victim was raped or how somebody was murdered, you are most likely speaking to an audience that has had a similar experience. And so that kind of description is not necessarily achieving what you may want, which is to raise awareness, which is to cause people to want to take action, but it could actually be re-traumatizing to the national psyche.
You've also, if you will, called out, if we can phrase it that way, English broadcasts in particular as being particularly gratuitous and unnecessarily graphic in the description of the crimes. How much of a difference was there between those broadcasts and perhaps the other languages?
So my study hasn't looked at other languages. I've specifically looked just at English broadcasters, and I think that would be an area of future study to consider how is it different, if at all, when maybe isiXhosa, Afrikaans or another language is used, and if even in those languages we focus on the same kinds of cases, because I suspect some of the cases that are a priority for English media may not be that much of a priority for other languages. So as an area of future study, that will be something I definitely look at.
I want your take on something else, Sisanda, the parading by the media, especially during 16 days of activism, of men who have either been accused or admitted to abusing women, be it through assault, rape, or even murder in some cases. Should that be happening, and when it does, how should we be doing it?
My personal view is that we really need to be careful around how we portray so-called recovered abusers and recovered criminals, because one of the things that my study does find is that in these court cases, particularly when a sentence is being delivered, there's quite an emphasis on the emotional state of these criminals. We'll often see them crying on the stand, and we'll often hear them expressing remorse about how sorry they are, without being given context as to whether or not, for the duration of the trial, did this person really express this remorse, or is this remorse coming now that they are finally being sentenced and they face a hefty sentence? And I think it applies broader, even beyond just the court processes, to really consider, have these people who we say have recovered or have changed their ways really demonstrated that? And what are we doing to the victims of these perpetrators when we parade them and laud them as having changed their ways and are now doing good to society? I think I would encourage us to even think of steering clear and rather bring to the fore the voice of people who have suffered violence, and leave perpetrators, if they're doing good work, good for them. Let them do it in the communities, in the background, not seeking media attention for it, and let victims speak and actually move the conversation in the direction that it should be going, instead of re-traumatizing the national psyche.
Sisanda, so good to speak to you. That was Sisanda Nkwala from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology.